Welcome back to your favorite St. Louis sports podcast, The Lunatics. I'm your host, Tyler, along with my friend and co-host, John, who decided to hit record while I was pouring a drink. Welcome back to a wonderful week in sports. We have some interesting things to talk about here in St. Louis. And really kind of kick things off, biggest thing in sports is that the college football playoff semifinals in our online college football game are tonight after this, where I'm hopeful to once again defeat John in the college football playoff.
You say that like it's happened a lot. I just want to point out, unlike you, I have never lost to the other member of our league.
You've also never made it far enough to play him.
To be fair.
You have lost to me, however.
I do like that you put that out there to try to make me commit to having to play this as soon as we're done here. So that was a nice try, but you can't be long-winded if you want that to happen.
I am never long-winded on here. Speaking of college football and all of its beauty, glorified rarity, whatever you'd like to say, first official weekend of college football is in the books, and your Mizzou Tigers looked pretty much the dominant team we expected them to, at least for the first quarter. Defensively for the whole game. Offensively, they definitely feel like they took their foot off the gas in that second quarter.
Yeah, I mean, they did, but then they kind of got it back towards the end, and they were good in the third quarter. And then, they were up so much that halfway through the third quarter, they swapped to the backups, and then our backups put on a couple touchdowns. So we definitely looked like a top 15 team in the country playing at FCS school. I think the big problem in the second quarter was that they were we went up 3 touchdowns in 5-6 minutes into the game. It was absurd how fast they were up 21-0. And I think they just settled. They were just too much better than Murray State.
The gap was very evident. And I agree. I think, again, they did what we wanted them to do, right? The biggest thing we said is they needed to look dominant, and they needed to put no doubt that they deserve to be a good team. And we didn't do what Florida State did to open the season, and that's what really counts.
That is what really counts. And, I've seen a lot of comments on the old Twitter and on Reddit asking about how concerned should we be about playing Boston College and Vandy already, because Vandy had a good week 1 as well. Boston College just beat FSU last night. And I don't think it changes anything for us. Honestly, I'm kind of glad to hear that those two teams had some pretty good wins, because the problem with Mizzou's schedule this year was that it was going to be too easy, right? So anything less than dominating almost every game was going to hurt them. And so, I do think they're still better than those two teams. I do think they're still going to win. And so if they're putting in good wins against other opponents, I think that just makes us look better when we play them. And also, I think FSU is just vastly overrated this year. So
I think they are too. And I think, everyone talks about it, Florida State getting left out of the college football playoff and this, that, and the other. And what a lot of people keep forgetting is that Georgia also missed out on the college football playoff, with their only loss coming in the SEC championship game to Bama. And real tough there. And I feel like they came out with a little bit more fire to start their season than FSU did.
Yeah, dominated Clemson, who was I think 14th overall, 34-3.
Very good Clemson team. Absolutely destroyed.
Yeah, so I mean, all roads lead through Georgia right now. But I thought both Noel and Carroll looked really, really dangerous with the ball. I thought Brady Cook was actually, of our starters, looked to be the worst starter.
Mm-hmm. Which is a good feeling, because he's got it in him.
Yeah, he's got it in him. He's going to go out, shake the rust off. He'll be okay. I know Norfleet left the game right before the other starters, but supposedly it's not serious. He should be back this week. So that'll be good. He's a freaking monster of a tight end. He's a huge target, and he's pretty fast too, actually. But I was really impressed with the defense. I'd like to see him against tougher competition, which we have over the next few weeks, at least tougher than Murray State. We did lose, as you know, you and I talked about last week, a lot of players to the draft, but you couldn't tell watching that game on Thursday. Like, could not tell. Thursday? It's Thursday.
Yeah, it was Thursday. Well, and the other nice thing you think about, right, is, there's teams that go out and they play that. If you're playing a top 10 matchup and you lose, okay, fine, you can deal with that in the week one. But if you're not playing a top 10 matchup, honestly, there's two things with these, right? First is tune-up games and these, play against these lesser schools. It's great for Mizzou to tune up and kind of get the confidence and the juices rolling, because you don't really get a preseason like you do in the NFL. So this is their only chance at it. The other nice thing, and this is something that I've heard a lot, radio, read a lot about on articles and things. I think The Athletic had one about it as well. But how important these tune-up games are going to be to keep smaller programs rolling going into future years with NIL and things. The rich keep getting richer, and these games are an amazing opportunity for these smaller schools to make a chunk of money and to help fund their programs. And so I think it's, don't forget about that. People are like, man, I can't believe they're scheduling this. And I'm like, this benefits both teams more than people realize.
Right. The other thing I'll say about week one, two other things I'm going to say. First, the rankings came out today, and we're now top 10, both in the coaches and the media poll. So 9 in the media, 10 in the coaches. ESPN in their article announcing that did say that per their internal analytics, they project Mizzou will win every game that's left on the schedule, which I think is awesome.
Except one.
Except one, Alabama. Yep, sorry, totally forgot to say that. Left off the big one.
Except Bama in Tuscaloosa, though.
Right. The other thing, because I was trying to get ahead of myself, Texas A&M lost to Notre Dame and is no longer a ranked opponent. But, I think they're still a very good team, and we are playing in College Station. So that's still going to be a really tough game. And then, of course, after Alabama, Oklahoma. If we win every game except Alabama, that could be really good for us, especially if Alabama win the SEC championship. I think if Alabama does not, that could hurt us more because there's only 7 at-large spots. But we'll have to see.
I think if you're an 11-1 team, your only loss is to Bama, and Bama and Georgia play a close SEC title game, you're still in. As long as Bama didn't just absolutely dismantle you, you're in.
Right.
The flip side of that is if Bama slips up once or twice, Georgia does, there's still a chance at 11-1 you make the SEC title game.
Right. And then it's just don't get blown out by the other.
Whoever you're
ideally
playing,
win, but if you're going to lose, don't get blown out. Right.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We play Buffalo on Saturday at 6 p.m., which unfortunately is 30 minutes before St. Louis City plays because they have an East Coast game this week. So going to have to watch that one on delay and put my phone on Do Not Disturb for 4 hours.
That's what I do every night when they play, because I usually don't start the game till the kids are in bed. West Coast games are the only ones I watch live anymore.
Right. Those 9:30 games. Sometimes I really hate those 9:30 games because I'm getting old, but then other times I'm like, this is nice. Like I can do bedtime, I can eat dinner, and then I can just focus on the game. I'm kind of excited to watch City this week while we're on that topic. That was a huge win last week.
I think, and we've seen it, we've talked about it on here. Lutz came out to play in the transfer window. He came out playing for keeps, and picking up the players that he did, Toy Shirt, Hartle, signing Betcher, picking up Sam Horn, then you've got JGR. Yeah. Giannis Horn. You also have JGR, and Kessler as well in that trade.
And they all, every single one of them did something in that game that was meaningful and contributed to a win. Kessler was everywhere defensively. Horn was down and back. Teuscher scored the first goal. Betcher and Hartle combined for that one to get it to him. And then Hartle scored the second goal. I do think if we're calling out performances, Jake Nerwinski had the game of his life, shutting down Joseph Paintsel. I thought Hebert had a really good game. In fact, I think every player who went out there had a pretty good game or a really good game. I think Betcher, other than the pass to Hartle, who passed it.
He was just quiet. He wasn't a bad game. He just was just quiet.
Right. He was quiet.
Which you want your number 9. Yeah, and you want your number 9 to be making noise. I thought Klaus, when he came in, on the other hand, set the tone.
A little aggressive,
but it gave me flashbacks of when Sam took out the Sporting KC guy on the sideline. Like, I'm here to set the tone.
Well, I thought the same thing for Horn's tackle too, right? Where he got his yellow. Like that was that one is what made me think of Sam's tackle. But it did crack me up, and then I was worried it was real. But the LA player is down for a little bit, and then Horn just very dramatically falls to the ground, and I'm like, okay, he's either simulating or he has a non-contact injury from walking. But he was down so long. I think he was
simulating. I think he was simulating, and then he definitely forgot about the rule in MLS where you have to sit out.
Yeah, that's exactly. He was so pissed on the sideline, and I told Kelsey's like, "Why is he so angry?" And I'm like, this is his first game in the league, and he doesn't know that if he's down too long or the trainers have to come out on the field, he has to leave for 2 minutes. And he is just now learning that rule exists for MLS. The only player who I thought did not have a great game was Thor. I felt like he looked he looked like he was lacking energy compared to everyone else. Basically, he looked like a step behind. But I don't want to beat down on the guy because I think the interwebs do that enough.
No, I think he's done really well starting, but I mean, if you go back and look at him subbing as a whole, he doesn't have the same energy subbing as he does starting.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
When he starts,
he's definitely better when he starts.
He is invested from the get-go, but he struggles to really get going when he's subbed in. And I'm not sure what that is. And I'm sure it's something, and I'm not saying he's terrible, but he does not look like the same player when he subs as when he starts.
I kind of wonder if it's you kind of have to catch up to the speed of the game and feel how everything's going. And he's usually
not a menace early on either. It's usually that 20-minute mark is when he starts to hit his stride when he starts. So I think he's just somebody who kind of has to feel his way out in a game, and then coming in as a sub is not a strength for him there.
Yeah.
Other things that I noticed from the City game that was exciting.
Can't fail to mention.
Love me some Rasmus. And again, he comes on the field, and the first thing I hear to my wife is, "God, he's such a good-looking man." And I'm like, "Yeah,
he is a good-looking man. He's a really good-looking man." I'm very envious of several of our players' looks, but
I'll never be there. But
that's fine, right? We got husbanded up early. So
we found women who were willing to compromise their standards for us, and we snatched them up and ran.
Exactly, 100%, 100% what happened. The other player that really excited me though in this game was Durkin, and I love me some Durkin, but
John runs on Durkin.
The world runs on Durkin, and in fact, shout out right here to No Goal Patrol, because one of my favorite rally towels right there.
Yep.
Kyle is the best at puns. For those of you listening and not watching, it's a pun of America runs on Duncan, but it's the world is covered by Durkin. But anyway, one thing I did not know that I needed really bad was to watch Durkin shove Royce off the ball 4 or 5 times. It was nothing. That just, I have nothing against Royce. I don't blame him for not choosing St. Louis. He totally deserves whatever it is he's looking for in LA, and LA is at the top of the table and we are not. So I get that
and
too.
His wife wanted LA and not the Midwest, which
exactly.
Can you blame her?
Get that? No, not at all. I totally get that. Like, that's fine. But still, like, watching Durkin, who, like, if you were to choose a player who, like, kind of embodies St. Louis, I think Durkin would be a pretty good option for that, right? He just puts his head down, he does his thing, he never goes down, right? Like, if he goes down, it's a legit foul. It's not like he doesn't flop or anything like that. He covers the most ground every game, and he just freaking goes for it every single time he can. And I think that is St. Louis. So I don't know. I just really appreciated the symbolism of that.
No, I agree. I loved watching Durkin play. I thought he did great. I thought, like you said, you mentioned it earlier, but I think Hebert's done well. And we kind of mentioned in our chat with our buddy Tyler, and that, the evolution of Hebert this year, especially since that international call up, gave him a whole new level of confidence this year.
Right.
And he's playing like a different guy, which is great. The one thing,
Well,
if you want the one goal
in
they
position
had,
too.
yeah,
He's also in position.
Playing center back again. We've talked about it how many times on this podcast, how much better he is when he's at center back versus, left back. But, the one goal that we gave up, he was involved in that play. I think he misread just a little bit where the run was going and where the ball was going to be played. And it was more of a gamble. I think he was gambling that they were going to play it more back than what they did, and then realized the run was happening. So, like, in a split second, it's hard to judge that. If Berkey comes up with a miraculous save, nobody even talks about it. So it's really not even worth mentioning. But outside of that one moment, I couldn't think of another moment that he was really, truly out of position or misplayed anything the rest of the night.
Yeah, and
even that, he wasn't out of position. It was just a split-second reaction
which
thing.
happens, right? Which happens. The ball moves fast, right? The ball's the fastest player in the field, right? Yeah, I didn't get a good look at that. Our seats were actually looking straight down at the goal at 2:10, like even with the goal. But like, it was 30 seconds into the second half, and Kelsey had just gotten back to our seats, and asked, like she'd taken our daughter to the bathroom, and then asked if I could go get them a refill on their drinks. So, like, I was like getting up to get in. We were like talking through like what we were gonna do, and then like the goal happened, and we were like, wait, what the hell is going on? It's like 30 seconds back into the game. But it didn't matter, because we scored 2 goals and did not give up a goal within 3 minutes afterwards either time. So that is progress.
I think the toy shirt goal we talked about, right? But it was Hartle to Betcher to toy shirt having his first shot blocked, but then staying with it and knocking it home. And then Hartle doing what Hartle does. Beautiful service from Reed. Although Reed had a ball just right before that where he didn't put it where he wanted. You could tell Reed was frustrated with himself.
Right.
So it was nice to see a few minutes later he put the ball exactly where he wanted it. And Hartle, I mean, everyone talks about, man, like, what a finish. And I'm like, go watch the highlights of Hartle. You give the guy space in the box, he's going to pick out his spot every time. He doesn't have to swing as hard as he possibly can and send it 30 rows deep. I'm looking at you, Klaus. And the ball comes in, he just one times it and just redirects it to where he wants to go. I mean, just what you expect from a DP and a world-class soccer player.
Right. Well, and I think Klaus I think he just got in his head this year, because last season he was not like that at all. I am hopeful that with elevating the talent around him, that we're going to see kind of like a rebirth for him, kind of like we have with Leuven, right? Leuven has looked like he's enjoying playing soccer again. He's enjoying what he's doing. He looks like a new man. And so I'm hoping that we see that for Klaus. Last week, of course, Klaus was just so happy to be back on the field, and that place erupted when he came in. Like
you could
lost their minds. Yeah. And then like later in the game, like he is like amping the crowd up, like, trying to get everyone to cheer like more. And like when Alm was coming in, he was like trying to get us to be even louder for him than we were for Klaus. And yeah, I just love that guy.
There was that combination, and they did it for like 45 seconds a minute, wasted a good little bit of time, but with Klaus and Hartle, and I think it was Alm, just going to town down in the corner. And that was exciting to see. Again, there's so much to be excited for with City down the stretch. Again, I don't think we're going to sneak into the playoffs at this point. but we could definitely ruin some other teams' playoff
Right.
hopes. And
Well,
and it's not. I'm not saying it's impossible. We're not eliminated,
so
but
I am so glad that you said that, though, because I do want to give a little bit of a preview of what the rest of the season looks like. We have 7 games left. Okay. We probably need to win 6 of them. Okay. That does not sound awesome, but just hear me out here. Okay. So let me pull up the table here. So this weekend we play the New England Revolution, who have 26 points, so less than us, one less.
Parker.
They are 13th in the East. Not a good team. Definitely a team we can beat this year. Okay. Then we play at Minnesota. Okay. Minnesota is currently in the last playoff spot. Okay. Team we can beat. Play, or actually, we host Minnesota next week. Doesn't matter. Then we play at San Jose, who are probably getting the wooden spoon. Okay. Then we play Sporting Kansas City at home, who we've tied twice, and this one's at home, so can definitely win that one. Then we play LAFC. Okay. Midweek game at LA. That one's looking a little sus. All right. I'm going to give that one an L. Play host Houston. That's a maybe,
That's
but we
winnable.
definitely, that's winnable though. Winnable. And then we play at Minnesota on decision day. So like we can steal 6 points from Minnesota. We can definitely grab 3 points from New England. We can grab 3 points from San Jose, and we better grab 3 points from Sporting Kansas City. So then it really just comes down to that game against the
Houston
Dynamo.
game.
Yeah. Now we have to do our thing. We have to win the next 4 games to be in that position, right? But like we can do it. We're still in this. Like that schedule is very favorable for us to grab some points.
No, I would agree with that. Again, being the hopeful person, yes, we're not out of it. Being the realist, I don't know that we're going to make it, but we could sure as heck screw up Minnesota's season.
Yes, right. Well, and then it's like, okay, if we screw up Minnesota's season, it's Austin or Dallas, which like, okay, as long as it's not Sporting Kansas.
Yeah.
Who are just as far out of it as us. So probably not them.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and again, when we beat them, they'll be out of it anyway. So,
right. Exactly. Exactly.
I think again, there's a lot of things to be excited for with City. I think Hack has definitely got player buy-in, which we'll come back to here in a minute. And then I do want to go ahead and lovingly say best wishes to Blom. I enjoyed Blom, and I know you did as well. He was a huge piece for our first season. He did kind of fall out of favor, and then was kind of replaced by Durkin, who really, is he's just a different type of force on the field compared to Blom. And so I hope going back to Kaiser Chiefs for Blom gives some playing time, and long term, I would love to see the guy suiting it up in Europe and doing his thing. So best wishes, Blom, and wish nothing but the best for you over there.
Yeah. Which, speaking of player updates, before we move on, Nielsen, it was announced today, did re-injure his hamstring in a different location. It is supposedly very, very minor, but it is slightly delaying him coming back per Hack. So we'll have to monitor that. That really sucks, but it is what it is. Yeah. He's not young, and MLS is a very fast-paced, high sprinting league, and he had to take a year off recovering from his other injury, which probably really weakened his hamstrings. So
yeah. So I want your opinion on this before we move off of City.
Okay.
And obviously we have a little bit to talk about with the Blues, and then some stuff to talk about the Cardinals left to go here. But I talked with a source of mine who is friends with some players on City, and actually used to play with a couple of them, and was talking with him over lunch like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And he was talking about how there was a very clear disconnect all season with Carnell and the team. And that Carnell was, coming in and giving, day before the games, talking strategy or getting into the pregame talks and talking up stuff. And what he was told by the players that he knows was that they were all after the meetings pretty much saying, yeah, don't listen to anything he said, just go do your thing. Do you feel like that's accurate? Or do you feel like that's more of a, maybe a microcosm of maybe a player or two that at least a couple of those players I know are no longer with the team. So do you think it's more of isolated with the players than no longer with the team? Or do you think maybe that there was a bigger thing that we didn't see of Carnell kind of losing the locker room more than we realized?
You're not active on Twitter. That's been theorized since April.
Well, I know it's been theorized.
Yeah,
but
no, that's
I was
yeah, no, that's I think that's pretty apparent, right? And I think it was made worse by the injuries, and I think it's clear that it started with the issues with Sam, and because right before Sam got in trouble, there was like noted from multiple like people who go to practices. Tom Timmerman did it. I think Matt Baker had made a post about it. Justin Horniker, I think, had one as well, just all saying like that they observed a very heated discussion between Sam and Carnell at practice, and it looked like they were discussing tactics, like just very clearly in a disagreement on something. And then like that was like literally the week that Sam didn't dress for his first suspension that like none of us were prepared for. So I do think that's probably accurate. You look at how this team started this year, right? And then all the wheels came off, and I do really like BC. I thought he was the right person for our team last year, but clearly something was not working this year. And by all reports, like everyone loves Hack. You can tell the body language of the players. With the exception of Berkey at the end of the Portland game, fucking livid. But other than that, everyone was really, they all seem like they're enjoying it more than they were a few months ago. And I mean, we've won some games, but we've also basically only drawn a lot of games we should have won since like early July. So I don't know. It doesn't surprise me is all I'm saying.
No, you're good. I just wanted your opinion, and it held this back for like a little bit to ask about it since we didn't talk about him last week. So, all right. Moving on to the Blues. So we talked a lot about Lutz making great moves. Let's talk about Army for a minute. So came out, it's official. Torrey Krug is going to miss the season with surgery, which we all assumed would happen after the offer to Broberg and snatching him up. How do you feel about knowing that officially Krug is out? How do you feel about the Blues heading into the season? Do you feel better or worse with that?
I don't know. I guess I just like expected him to be out this year, so it doesn't really change how I feel about the Blues.
I expected him to be out. I think for me, it makes me feel, it just makes me feel more confident knowing what we're dealing with. The other nice thing is him going on LTIR means we can remove his cap hit off the team,
right.
Which could, at the deadline, if we're, on the cusp, make it a little bit easier to make a move at the deadline. So for me, I think it gives us the opportunity to maybe, hit 93 points, who knows? And
maybe.
Or more, and maybe make the playoffs. So I'm excited. I think, again, Army's been active. I think he's done the right things to not only try to improve the team, but trying to improve the team with young guys that can help really grow and build this team long term, because it's a youth movement with the Blues now, and they've said as much, and they're fully embracing the youth movement like any team should if they're at where the Blues were at.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with everything you just said. I just, like I mentioned, like I was already not expecting to see him, and I don't, we've already made these other moves that I think have had a bigger impact on my view of the Blues this year. I do think this team, that if we were to remake that bet, that point total would have to be higher, because I do think this team is better than last year's team, if only because of experience. And then those few transactions that we've talked about. I'm not saying that I think they're substantially better, necessarily, but I do think that there should be progression this year. So, I mean, I'm excited for the season to start. That could just be because it's preseason still, right? Or it's before the season still, and I'm optimistic. They definitely will have plenty of opportunities to crush that for me throughout the season if the Blues are anything like what they normally are. And since I just said the word preseason does start in about 2.5 weeks, I think, on the 21st, September 21st, I think, is their first game.
I've already promised Ewan that I'm taking him to at least a preseason game or two. So, because he keeps asking to go to a hockey game.
Well, just so you know, tickets are cheap. So
I'm aware. It's also a little less crazy, so it might be easier to introduce him to a live hockey game.
Right. Although a lot of our preseason games are away. At least the early ones are. Go to October. I'll find you a game. I'll find you in a game to go to. You keep talking.
Anyway, speaking of Ewan, while we're on the topic, for those of you who are not aware, Ewan is a Glennon kid, and John and I are doing the Sun Run in October 13th. It's a Sunday. We'd love to see you guys come out and join us on our Facebook page. We have a link up. You can either donate or sign up to do the walk run with us, and you can join our team, and we'll have a lot of fun. Our team name is Ewan and the Goobers, for those of you who are curious.
And we are going to put the link directly to our page. We'll have a few posts for it, and we'll try to update it into our profiles too. So that way, if you wanted to, you can contribute, which we would really appreciate. If you follow the STL Soccer News account on Twitter, who has a goal, predict the amount of goals City will score each week competition for charity. That is what our charity is. Although, if I'm not mathematically eliminated, I am. It is less likely for me to win this than City make the playoffs. That's all I'll say.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
There's barely a chance. I honestly think I might be eliminated. I have to actually check because I predicted 2 goals a lot during that stretch when they scored like nothing. And then
you win some, you lose some.
Right. The game you want to take them to, if you are free on Tuesday nights, which maybe this Tuesday night we'll make an exception. Columbus at St. Louis Blues, starting at 7 p.m. Tickets as low as $5, according to ESPN.
What's the date on that?
October 1st. It's a preseason game.
Is there a game on October 3rd?
Yes, Dallas.
At home?
At home. Yep, Thursday.
I think that might be. I think that one might be the one that Blues Fan Forum and Jacob are trying to get as many people and pack a section for a preseason game just for fun. So
you could go to 2 games in a week.
Oh, I'm not opposed.
Right. You could do that.
I'll take my phone and pull up Riverside, and we'll just record at the game. It'll be fine.
That's not the worst idea we've ever had, actually.
We can get Jacob's thoughts too while we're at it.
That's right. We could get live rapid reactions from Steve on the Blues preseason.
All right. So we talked a lot about the Blues making a youth movement, and really committing to rebuild. Let's talk about a team that has not done that in the St. Louis Cardinals, which instead decided to go full in on starting the early retirement home this year.
Yes, they did.
They just won tonight. A game just wrapped up. Beat Milwaukee.
Did they end up winning? I have my phone on Do Not Disturb. I saw we were an extra and tied.
7-4. But... We, we are now 1 game above 500. We're not making the playoffs. First and foremost, thanks Tommy Pham for everything. He did put a post out there, so where he said that he actually requested to be placed on waivers because he wanted a chance to make the playoffs again. Got picked up by the Royals, and he did say he was, very appreciative of the Cardinals front office for granting him that, knowing where they were at and that he wasn't going to be able to play as much as he wanted. He's at the end of his career and wants to be on a legitimate contender. So we've got Jordan Walker up. He's now playing. They've finally committed to letting him play every day on this call-up, where they called him up to platoon him, which was an asinine idea to begin with, because if you need your young guy to get hits and to get repetition, pulling him up to platoon him does him no good.
It also, like, they sent him right back down like a week later is the other thing.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they wasted an option for no reason. Like,
so,
which, like, good for him. Like, but still, sorry, continue.
No, it's ridiculous. And Sunday was great. He went 5 for 5, but otherwise he's been probably close to a 200 hitter since he's come up. Don't quote me on that. I'm just spitballing outside of that game. Goldie came out and said that he's planning to play baseball next year, playing in major leagues. What are your thoughts on Goldie playing another season? Because the chances are Mo's going to make him an offer. What if he comes back? What makes sense to you for him to come back?
In terms of money?
Money and what his role should be.
Yeah. So I don't really care what they offer him financially, as long as it doesn't really, like, okay, let me rephrase that. If the Cardinals stick to their normal $170 million payroll, then yes, I really care what Goldie gets paid, because that's kind of like our unofficial cap, right? That's about what the Cardinals spend every year. If they're willing to go, spend $170 million on every player not named Paul Goldschmidt, and then they pay Paul Goldschmidt whatever they pay Paul Goldschmidt, I'm okay with that, if that makes sense. But if he's the last $10 million to get us to that 170 number, well, okay, let's talk for a moment. And $10 million may not even be a bad amount for him, but I feel like that's probably over. His position on this team next year should be as a role player. I have like I said, I love Paul Goldschmidt. I think he's an excellent locker room guy. I do wish he was a more vocal leader. I don't think that's really his style, but I do think if he was more vocal, we maybe could have avoided some of these situations that we've supposedly been in the last 2 years, where we've supposedly lacked leadership. But I don't think he should be your starting first baseman next year. But that's just me.
Where I see him as a platoon player, he still hits left-handed pitching well. And as a potential defensive sub, day off type guy, he's still our best defensive first baseman as it stands. Though I have some thoughts on that as well. Burleson is not great defensively at first. And realistically, I think better profile would be Burley and right, and Jordan Walker at first. Don't think that's what we will get. I mean, Jordan Walker has no problem getting down, getting balls. That's why he played third as well as he did, and for as long as he did. And he's got the height to be able to really give you some extra inches, if you will, off the bag.
Absolutely.
What I think Goldie is going to want is in that $10 to $12 million a year range. I think Cardinals would behoove them to stay in that $6 to $8 million range, and then if you're going to offer him, you offer him a 1 year with a 1 year option at between 6 to 8 AAV, or 5 with incentives to get up to 8 or whatever, so that if he hits certain numbers, he can get up there. My biggest concern with them bringing him back is that Ollie's going to play him every day, even if they sign him to be a platoon player.
Well, let me ask you this. Okay. Are Mo and Ollie still with the team next year if they miss the playoffs a second year in a row?
I hope not, but we're talking about the DeWitts, so I don't know.
Well, that's true. I could see Mo staying, but I could see it costing Ollie, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying it's more Ollie's fault. No matter how I feel about Ollie, right? This team is constructed the way Mo constructed the team, which is the way the DeWitts, told him this is the amount of money you have, like, do what you will with it. But if this team is serious, if this organization is serious, neither will be a team next year if they miss the playoffs.
I keep going back to the quotes from Mozeliak when they fired Matheny.
Yes.
When they were 1 or 2 games above 500, and he said, we expect more. We have to be better than a 500 or around 500 team.
Yep.
Fast forward to when all of a sudden Mo has his guy, the guy that he's been grooming to come up to be the manager, who just had the worst season in 100 years for the Cardinals or whatever it was last year.
Something absurd, yes.
It wasn't quite 100, but it was close.
Right.
And you follow that up with another subpar season. Okay, so where are you holding this manager accountable? The flip side is Matheny had a better team that was constructed for him than what Mo has constructed for Ollie.
Yeah.
I'm not saying a lot better, just better.
But no, the team was definitely better. And it wasn't just that it was better relative to the league, right? That's the thing you have to keep in mind, especially in baseball, right? That like it's not just how good you quote unquote think you are, it's how good you are compared to how good everyone else is. This team, my mom and I were actually talking about this yesterday, that this team should be better than it is. And I mean, there are definitely positions that I think should be. I mean, I think Goldie and Arenado have lost bat speed. Like, that's just age, okay? And I think Gorman has an inability to avoid striking out, right? And that's just who he is. But, like, unless he can make better contact, like, that's going to be a problem. And he needs to slug more, too. Like, how many home runs does he have this year? 19 home runs? That's not enough for Nolan Gorman. Like, Nolan Gorman needs to be a 30-plus home run hitter.
I'm sitting here and I'm looking at the roster from the 2018 Cardinals, and I don't know that it's actually better.
Oh, really?
I'm going to start going through the 2018 Cardinals roster. Now, the pitchers is a different thing, but your catchers, obviously you have Yachty. The rest of them don't matter.
Correct.
I mean, let's be honest. The rest of them weren't playing. Infielders, you have Matt Adams, Matt Carpenter, Paulie D, Greg Garcia, Jed Jerko. We forget about how good Jed Jerko was.
Jed Jerko was really good. In
Jose Martinez,
2018. Okay.
Yairo Munoz, Edmundo Sosa, Luke Voigt, Patrick Wisdom, and Colton Wong.
Colton Wong was good for us. Luke Voigt was not as good for us as he was
for the Yankees.
Yeah, right.
And the same thing, Patrick Wisdom never got a chance, and now he's a stud for the Cubs.
Carpenter, 2018 was, I think, the year where he really was a letdown. So there's that. Sosa was good for us a few years later, but I don't really remember him from that time period.
And then your outfielders.
And Paulie D was who Paulie D always has been. So please. Yeah. No, Paulie D was good that year. Wasn't he? Wasn't it the year Paulie D was really good?
Paulie D, up until the last couple of years, was like a 250 to 280 hitter with like 25 home runs a year.
Right.
Consistently. And he was right.
That's what I remember of him from the late 2010s, which is phenomenal for a shortstop. Like, that's great. Anyway.
Outfield was Harrison Bader, Dexter Fowler, Adolis Garcia, Tyler O'Neill, Ozuna, and Pham.
Yes. That outfield performed better than this outfield for sure. I feel pretty confident about that outfield.
But if you just look at the teams, and you were to look at like going into the season, you'd feel more confident about the group we have almost, right?
I mean, I know that's the point you want me to make. I'm not, because the other thing that we didn't talk about is the pitching was so much better, right?
Yeah, that's the big difference. That was Michaelis's first year back when he went like 18-3 or something. So you had him. Obviously, Adam Wainwright was pitching better. Then we still had Waka. Luke Weaver was in and out. Dakota Hudson was in and out. That was the first year that Jordan Hicks started making appearances and was, crazy all there. So, I mean, like, there was good stuff there. I just, for me, it's, I can't say, I'm not even saying that one's better than the other. I'm just saying, at first I was like, man, I feel like the 2018 was better, but like, I don't know that I could really, it's a hard time to pick one over the other just on paper. If I were to say clean slate going into the season, who would I want? Which roster would I have wanted? This year's roster or that season's roster? pitching, I'd want that one. Positionally, I'd want this one.
Yeah, but
like
I
there's
don't
more
think
upside with this one, but positionally.
Yeah.
The problem
I
is,
could not make a case for either group positionally. I think the infield this year is slightly better. I think the outfield this year is slightly worse. I think it's roughly a wash there. I will say this, as far as like our pitching goes, if you want to know why this year has not necessarily gone well, it's because, and we kind of predicted this, that this was a risk with the way the staff was constructed, but our best pitcher this year by ERA as far as starters go is Sonny Gray, which it should be, but he's only got a 3.96 ERA, which means he's only been okay. And granted, Lance, 406, only okay. Palante, 407, only okay. Kyle Gibson, slightly less okay, but still okay. And then everyone else is above that 4.5 mark that for me is kind of my demarcation for starting pitching for like okay.
Yeah, you have to be below 4.5 to be effective and to be, in my mind, hold a spot in major leagues. And we don't have enough of that.
Well, we have a lot right there at around 4 to 4 or 5. We don't have anyone. We don't have anyone close to 3.
Yeah, you need to have 1 to 2 pitchers around 3, even 3.
Yes.
Your top 2 starters need to be there, and we don't have it.
Yes, correct.
And again, we didn't truly think that we would. We thought Sonny Gray was the only one who had a chance when we talked before the season started. So I think there's a lot to be learned from this team as far as going into next year and how we do things better. Again, I think the Cardinals should have committed to more of a youth movement earlier on. I think they could have let Jordan Walker play more and play through the struggles. I'm not saying sending him down was wrong, but calling him up and then sending him right back down a week later was wrong for sure. And I think, there was some injury stuff in there as well. I think my biggest complaint right now with the Cardinals is their lack of ability to develop their own players. They can get guys to AAA and to be dominant AAA players. I don't feel like they know how to put the finishing touches on players to get them to be effective big leaguers.
I would agree with that. I don't have anything else to add. Like that's just, right there. We have struggled to get guys that are going to perform at the major league level. And I think Dylan Carlson was an excellent example of that, right? We thought Dylan Carlson was going to be this stud for us, and he was not. And we have seen that pretty consistently from a lot of guys that we've called up. And it's been miss after miss after miss on these guys. I will say that Mason Wynn has been a very notable exception to that. And I think, and Carlson even had his moments where there were definitely flashes of what we thought he was going to be. And but we thought Tyler O'Neill was going to be, and what we hope Jordan Walker will be, right?
There's an underlying thing here with all of these players too, and that's, what are the Cardinals doing with their strength and conditioning, or not doing? Because we have a lot of young guys that are on the shelf for long stretches. Like, we can't keep guys healthy.
Yeah.
And at what point do you look at your strength and conditioning program and make sure that you're actually doing everything you need to be doing, or your players are? And I think that's something else that we haven't talked about, but I think it goes along with the coaching, the staff, the support staff that the Cardinals have as an organization. And I think that's something they're missing a lot of right now. And again, not letting Tyler O'Neill sleep on a futon anymore so that his back gets torqued last year so that he can't play for a month and a half or whatever it was.
Right.
You name it, and it's happened. It is what it is, and it sucks to be in the position. But like I said, we can look at some good things, right? Because we didn't trade Carlson for Juan Soto, and we dodged that bullet, right?
Right. Dodged it. No,
Oh
yeah,
man, almost
he
got
is. We are
a generational
absolutely
talent. Oof,
right.
that was close.
We are absolutely not trading Dylan Carlson. He is not available. He's not on the block. And then 2 months after the season ended, we're asking people to take Dylan Carlson. It's
And
just
then
asinine.
when we finally do trade him, the guy we get in return for him, we
Cut.
waive 2 weeks after we traded him.
Right. It was
Like,
just like, what are we doing? Like this organization just no longer inspires any confidence, and that starts at the very top. And I mean above Mo. Like this starts with the DeWitts and it goes down. And like I really feel bad saying that, but like we're being outpaced by so many other teams year after year now.
it's I think it's the Cardinals don't have an identity. We're not willing to spend like big spenders, but we're not ready to really truly commit to the analytics and the small money
Right.
approach like the Brewers and the Rays.
And the Dodgers and the Yankees and
Padres.
maybe the Padres, right? Those are all clubs that invest heavily financially and also really buy into the analytics. And I mean, it's not necessarily working out for the Padres as well as those other two, but like there's a reason LA, I mean, they're going to make the playoffs, but I mean, they have to play LA, right? Like LA is in their division. But there's a reason why LA and New York are consistently where they are. And it's not just the fact that they throw major money around and that they live in cities people want to live in. It's the fact that they're very smart too. And
I will say the Dodgers have the fourth best record in the National League. They're only a couple games behind the Phillies, Brewers, and Dodgers.
Right. And Atlanta's another team too that is willing to spend and does it right. Like is smart. And like they actually built their effing team. They did not go out and acquire it. Right.
So you actually just led me straight to my next fun thing I wanted to get at before we wrap this thing up tonight, which is looking at how the Braves have built their team and signed their own young homegrown talent early on, not waiting too long, but still willing to give big deals to guys that they know are going to be their stars. Mm-hmm. One, do you think the Cardinals are willing to do that with anybody? And two, when should they extend Mason Wynn?
Right. So the clear answer right now is Mason Wynn, right? They should lock Mason Wynn up for the next 8 years. Avoid arbitration. And that's the other thing too, right? We have a habit of going to arbitration and pissing a lot of our like stars off, right? Like so that's something that Atlanta is avoiding by locking these guys up. Like even if you just lock them up for the 6 years at more money, like you have them bought in and excited and whatever, and you're not going to the arbiter and telling them about why this player, no, we like him and he's part of our team, but he actually sucks. Like he shouldn't be paid what he's asking for.
Look, he thinks he's good, but we think he's shit.
Right.
Oh, by the way, come back and play hard for us.
Right. And so I think they absolutely should with Mason Wynn. I think they could with Jordan Walker and just heavily incentivize it. Right. Mm-hmm. You can include like, hey, performance bonus. Like if you spend the whole season at the majors or, whatever, you get this amount more. If you hit this many home runs, you get this amount more, right? Like we can do that and protect the club and also give him the incentive to like stay and the security, right? Guys want security as well. But after that, like, I don't think I would say that we really need to go out of our way to lock up Gorman yet, right?
There's one other young guy Donnie. Right this second, two. I don't know why I forgot about Donnie. There's two guys that I would lock up. I would lock up Donnie and I would lock up Burleson. And Burleson's not going to take a lot to lock up.
No,
and that's why I would.
Not at all. Yeah,
I was like, Burleson is going. His bat is going to continue to play.
Mm-hmm.
You could easily, I feel like, lock Burleson up for 5 years and $30 million.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, if you did that, you would get him through pretty much the prime of his career.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's already 26. So like,
oh yeah, so you're getting him through his age 31 season,
right?
And then you can reassess.
Yeah, they absolutely, honestly, I think, should do that.
And it's those kind of deals, right? It's trying to be smart with it, and I think the Cardinals should do more of this with their homegrown guys that they have proven they can play. Burleson's shown he can hit at the major league level.
Mm-hmm.
He's shown he can be serviceable at defensive positions as needed. Lock him up, and you don't have to pay him like you're not paying him 10, 20, 30 million, 10, 20, 30 million a year. The flip side of that is Mason Wynn. If you're going to lock him up long term, I hope you're ready to open up the checkbook.
Right.
Because Mason Wynn is going to be a 8-year, 120 million type of player.
That might be low. Yeah, that's low. Really low for the position he plays, and like the skill that he brings at it. Like not just like technical ability, but like he's unique among shortstops.
You're buying out his cheap years, so that has to go into effect. So you get a discount because you're buying out the years you could be paying him $800,000.
Right.
So if if you do it right, you can do 10 years, 150 million, while the whatever it comes out 100, 15 million a year. Again, that's 10 years of security for Mason Wynn, but you're buying out his cheap years, so he's getting paid more now than what he would otherwise.
One thing I want to mention, and I think this is probably it before we have to wrap up, is that it is kind of funny to me that conceptually 10 years, 150 million sounds way more expensive than 8 years, 120 million. Like even on on a per year basis, even though their AAV would be the same.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
But like those 2 years would be like 2 years you'd probably still want Mason Wynn at that price, but like it sounds like so much more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's crazy to think about. And it's even crazier to think about, like, why can't we maybe petition the city for some of that money we got from the Stan Kroenke lawsuit? Right?
There you
give
go.
It back to the Cardinals. Let's give some money to the Cardinals, give some money to city, and let's, get this thing rolling. And you know what? Just like Stan Kroenke said, fuck them draft picks. You know what? We can say, fuck you, Stan Kroenke, and thanks for your money. And with that, everyone, Stan Kroenke, we hate you. Good night.